Hello everyone, my name is Rashad and I'm a developer here at Hounder. Today I wanted to discuss one of my favorite JavaScript libraries called Scroll Magic. This is such a great tool for setting JavaScript events and CSS style changes to trigger while scrolling on your page. Normally you can set scroll triggers yourself, but it can be really time consuming, and that's where Scroll Magic comes in as a great tool. A quick rundown of this library: you can link to its CDN to utilize all of its functionality, or you can install via NPM and other methods to easily integrate into your code and sites. It works by setting triggers that fire events while scrolling the page. The awesome thing is that it's completely custom and you can set however many triggers and events that you want. Let's take a scroll down the homepage here of scrollmagic.io that gives a teaser of how these triggers work. Now you'll notice as I scroll, you're going to see a lot of custom CSS and style changes happening along the page. Check out this awesome animation for the top half. As the page changes and triggers get hit, you'll see custom CSS and JavaScript is actually firing. We'll do a further breakdown of that in the examples. As we drop down here, I recommend the most important section is actually help, as it leads directly to the examples for Scroll Magic and the documentation. I recommend going through the documentation to get a further in-depth look at how this library is working, and you can better understand the library itself. But let's go ahead and jump into the examples. There are three tabs being broken down here by Basic, Advanced, and Expert. It's really easy to learn how it works with all the examples that Scroll Magic provides. You can do a lot of custom testing, and based off their examples, you can kind of pull that code and use it for yourself. This trigger sticking to the side of the page is what allows the library to know when to fire custom CSS and JavaScript changes as it passes trigger elements or components. So let's go ahead and see that now. As I scroll along the page, you're going to see this trigger is going to pass some threshold of this start with a duration of 300. As this passes, this is either going to apply JavaScript events, custom CSS styling, or classes. Right here, it triggers a sticky state for this box. And as we continue, there's another trigger state here for another one, but it has a duration of 0, which essentially means infinite, as it won't stop sticking. Now, what's really awesome is if you scroll back to the top of any of these examples, you can view the source of the code. This is really great for doing a breakdown of understanding what's happening. So let's go ahead and view the source here. Within the source, you're going to see normal HTML, but we have Scroll Magic controllers getting initialized here. This is what's going to set our trigger to then fire on these trigger events. Now, after the controller is set up, you'll see the HTML with trigger 1, as well as the script directly tied to it. Now, scenes are what's tied to the controller. And here in the Scroll Magic scene, the trigger element is trigger 1, and the duration is 300. We set the pin to pin 1, which is that inner blue box item, and that's what sets it to pin for the duration. The next thing, and the most important, is to add to controller. This add to the controller will essentially set up the trigger to actually fire this scene when crossing that threshold. Now, you can apply multiple scenes to the controller itself. Here we have trigger 2 with that box that scrolled infinitely. Again, we set up another scene that sets a trigger element, but the trigger element this time is not trigger 2, it's pin 2. So the pin itself is actually the trigger and not the component. What's really awesome is you can set either the outside containers of items or the inner items to actually be the trigger for the event on the controller. I do recommend a further breakdown by going through the documentation of Scroll Magic. They do a very good job of giving you an in-depth breakdown, like for instance, learning what their functions do, like set pins, which pins the elements for the scene's duration. They have really good documentation and examples that you can kind of go through. But thanks for listening to this breakdown of one of my favorite JavaScript libraries. I hope you all give it a try when developing new code, and that it's a great help to everyone. With that, we'll be back with even more tips soon. Thanks so much for listening, all.